are live on OK. This is OkTrauma's very, very first live conversation. And we get this with Sanyika Firestarter Street, who is not only a powerful performance coach with his all-in method, an amazing storyteller and spoken word artist, and he is our moderator for our upcoming panel this Thursday, the 13th. Time today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, and I congratulations on the first live conversation, the first of many conversations to come. So definitely congrats to you and to Teddy and to Andrew and the rest of everybody who's contributed to put together this really important conversation on what it means to navigate the generational trauma and bring that conversation to the mainstream so we can remove the shame from the game. So
yeah, thank you for weaving in. One of the things that we really want to talk with each other about, and with everybody who gets to be here with us either now or later, is trauma. And one of the things that our OkTrauma is dedicated to bringing the trauma conversation into popular culture and evolving our experience with it, taking it out of the shadows and onto the main stage. And one way for that to be necessary and for people to really begin to be able to be safe with each other to do so is to really look at the shame that's been wrapped up in our trauma conversations with ourselves, with our families, with our communities, with our media, with everything that is orchestrated for everything for us to want to show up and look like everything's always great. You know? Being anything wrong.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of layers to that, and I'll just also use this as an informant to say that this conversation is a prelude to the panel discussion that we're having next week, which is bringing together some organizations that have dedicated their mission to healing trauma, generational trauma, and trauma from the conversation of race relations throughout the course of human history. So really, this is so this is the beginning of many of those conversations and creating a safe place for people to talk about trauma. But I mean, to really kind of break it down is really the shit that you've experienced, and as your shit comes up, how that informs your life and the way that you move. It is so critically important for people to understand that when your shit comes up, that is an expression of, and I use the word shit generously, because when we are navigating through our previous stories and our previous experiences, and we're trying to figure out why we can't get from here to there, from A to B, from this place to the next place that we're looking to go, is because there's this invisible wall. And that invisible wall is the experiences that we've gone through in our lives, the negative experiences, or our perceived negative experiences, and our relationship with that negative experience, and how it traps us in a four-wall box of shame, and that prevents us from navigating from where we are to where we want to be. And so this is really important to me, because the part of my personal evolution was confronting my shit and understanding that that shit happens, that life happens, that we experience life, and that we get to navigate and move through it so that we can get to where we want to be.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying it really simply like that. And I mean, I don't know how deep we want to go down the road of shit, but I think we all know that if we don't let it go, it is not good for us physically at all.
For sure.
And then we get into the stories that we've created out of experiences that we've had that have caused disrupted, created pain in our lives, physically, psychologically, emotionally. And if we're not, sometimes we unconsciously don't even know that we've stuffed it away.
Yeah. Most of the time we don't. That's the thing. 95% of our thoughts are subconscious.
Yeah.
95%. So if 95% of our thoughts are subconscious, what kind of awareness are we really walking around with in life? You know, how many really powerfully conscious choices are we really making in our lives? And at that point, that's really the foundation of my work as a coach. You know, and the work that I do with high performing men is about addressing and identifying where you are consciously choosing in on your life, right? And so what happens a lot of times is people go through this process of awakening, right? So we come to some level of self-awareness around the fact that something is going on. I went through it myself also, right? My own awareness process. So could you come up with some level of awareness about what you're navigating through? And then what I've seen happens a lot of time is people go down the rabbit hole of intellectualizing the process, right? So they go down the rabbit hole of intellect. So they do all the study, they do all the resource materials, they have all the intellectual understanding to break it down, probably far better than I ever could break it down myself.
I am the biggest culprit of that. It has been 2 years on that level.
Got it. Yeah, and then you end up smart, right, about what it is that you are experiencing, right? But as a comedian, Cat Williams said, he said sometimes people are smarter than a dumb motherfucker. Like they're smart and stupid at the same damn time. Smart and stupid, smart and stupid. And so what happens when you are smart and stupid at the same time is what you are not realizing is that your body is going through the same experience. Your body is experiencing what it is that you are going through. And then you can have the seeds planted up here, but until you confront what's happening somatically, like in your physical body, until you literally see yourself walk through the sort of the ring of fire, or till you actually see yourself move from where you are to where you want to be, see yourself cross the finish line, see yourself make the tough phone call, see yourself confront your physical, your body shame, right? All of that stuff.
That's like the taking the action and what goes on with our nervous system and our subconscious, and
right.
finding our way through that is no joke. And it is like walking through a fire a lot. And if we don't have the support or the awareness that there is trauma on some level that's blocking those actions, and there's no one in our communities that are able to reflect that for us, and so it continues on, and we get disappointed, and possibly that's where addiction stuff starts to come in, and we can see that everywhere in our lives. And I think that I know the work, with them, imagining the work you're doing with the men is a lot about helping them to face those moments and take the steps and really look at with a fine-tooth comb what is really underneath blocking those steps and how are we going to move through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I teach resilience, I teach the cultivation of personal relationships, and I teach revenue, right? Mm-hmm. How to navigate your personal resilience through the world, how to cultivate deeper relationships so you can generate revenue, right? And all along that process is story, right? The story of who you used to be, the identities that you used to embody, and the identities that have held you back from where it is that you want to go. So we need to identify those identities, identify the stories that are navigating you through. Like for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. Is the idea of someone saying they had enough money. I said, enough money. So how does that relate to trauma, right? How does that relate to stuff like that? Okay. Well, enough money. I said, because I used to believe it myself. I was like, oh, I just want enough money. One of my first goals in LA, when I first moved to LA from DC, was about, as an actor and being in entertainment, was like, hey, look, I just want to make enough money to live, right? And that seems like a worthy pursuit. But then when I start to dig into it, I say, oh, enough money to live. So what does enough money produce in terms of an action? Enough money, the quest for enough money produces enough actions, right? Mm-hmm. So now I'm doing just enough to produce just enough. Mm-hmm. And then if I'm doing just enough to produce just enough, where is that coming from, right? Well, it's coming from the belief that I'm not worthy for more. And so I go, oh yeah, so now I'm not worthy enough to get more because I've demonized more. I've made more bad. I've made the quest for abundance in my life. I've made it this negative thing. And so then we start to dig layer by layer. And then generally speaking, a lot of times it goes back to that period in life when you're developing and really creating your foundational meaning for how you move through the world between the ages of 0 and 7. And then that's where we create our primary context for the world. And so how was the quest for more beaten down so that you got into a place where scarcity was just enough? So now I'm doing just enough to survive. I'm literally living only to survive. And so then I go, okay, well, how can we navigate the previous identities and your traumatic experience with those previous identities to help you step into a place where you can embrace and understand that your mission on this planet is to acquire more, because if you feel like there are not enough good stewards of money and you are a good steward of money, then you can actually make positive change with money in your hands. Now you can actually be a cause for good. Now you can actually, quote unquote, change the world. But the thing is that until you believe it and so you can step into that, there's no getting to that place. No strategy or no processes are going to help you to navigate that story until you walk through that. So that's part of the work. There's tactical elements, but it's a lot of recrafting the story so you can understand, have a new perspective, and shape a new meaning around what it means to step into the next evolution of you.
And I would imagine that as you look at those stories with people, that navigating shame are the reasons that we would stay hidden from those, which are shame arises. And that is such a tender place, because usually it's like some younger version of us that is carrying this shame weight that has a very good reason to keep those things hidden, you know? And it's interesting because as I looked at it for myself, and then the old stories, when I really look at the shame that was at play in them, as I've felt it. I'm more kinesthetic than most, but I'll breathe into the shame instead of trying to hide from feeling it and experience it, and then like love it like it's a little kid, and like let it move through my body and let it go. And then it becomes lighter. I think that and I know not everybody can, look, we all have our way of navigating our stuff or working with people to navigate our stuff. But I really am curious about if we can create this feels like an edgy thing to say, but a more playful relationship with shame, because, or like an innocent relationship with shame. Maybe that's a better way to say it. And understanding that it's a color on the wheel and welcoming it to the table so that we're not trying to hide from it so much, inside of our stories. And then we'll have deeper access or more access to the stories that are blocking new actions for ourselves in our lives and with each other too. And even in our listening, I think bullying is connected to shame as well.
First of all, I appreciate you sharing that, your context around how you navigate and how you come to awareness around when you are feeling shame, right? And that's a really important thing to be aware of, right? So you, like you said, you're more kinesthetic, so you understand how it shows up and when it shows up for you, and then what you do, at least to come to some level of awareness of that you're experiencing, right? Question in that regard, like how would you say when you feel it, as you feel it coming through, do you have a process after you feel it, or what do you think you experience to really navigate through?
Up until recently, it was pretty blocked for me, and I've had some physical manifestations that I've been trying to get to the bottom of. And I because I'm also a dancer and an actress, usually I'm pretty tuned in, and I just was really committed to breaking through the other side of what's going on physically, because now I was like, all right, now it hurts to walk. What's going on, And I was telling a story to a friend, and I felt my body. It was one of those moments, for some reason, I was really present, and I felt my body turn and into and I was like, what was that? And I kind of let myself breathe into it. And it was this shame, and I felt it go into the place that had been hurting in my hip. And I was like, oh my God. And now now I have a relationship where, because my old habit was to block that feeling, that when I get really tense, it's one of the places I look. Oh, is there something I'm trying not to feel right now? Anger, sadness, and now I add shame to the list. It's usually something I wouldn't want the person I'm talking to know I'm feeling, or something like that. So, so now it's just kind of on the wheel of possibility when I'm feeling like a tension, like a muscle holding or something that shows up when I'm engaging, and if I can't do it in the moment, afterwards, and then I'll do my best to make room to allow myself to have the feeling, and breathe through it. And in my way, it's like celebrate it, like allow it, not make it wrong, allow it to the table, and then things move. It's like, well, what's the story that's creating that feeling right now?
Absolutely. And I love that. And I love the awareness on that. What I feel like is that awareness brings me to one of the areas that I really help my clients to go through and to navigate through, especially around what it is that I teach. There's so shame is this, for many people is this, is something that they are aware of, but they don't necessarily know like how it shows up in your life, right? Like what it physically does to you. And so shame is like it's an intellectual thought process. It's like, oh yeah, I experience shame. Like I experience this thing that I know the definition of, but I'm not exactly sure of how it shows up in my life. And what it actually does is it creates paralysis, right? It creates grief, creates paralysis, it creates anxiety, it creates all these different things, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way it's showing up in your physical body. So I got all this shame from, there was an example is a lot of people don't, and I'll show you how it shows with people's businesses or something like that, is that they go, oh, okay, well, somebody said, how often should I email my list? I said, how often do you want to have sex with your wife? However often you feel is necessary, right? And so the idea is that I got this. I was in contact with a salesman one time, and he said, can I follow up with you? I said, yeah. This dude followed up with me every single week, twice a week, for 6 months, and I didn't cut him off. I just wanted to see how long he could go, and he was like religious about it. And it was like, hey, just bumping this up. Hey, just bumping this up, just checking in. And each one was different. It wasn't like an automated thing, but checking in, hey, bumping this up, wanted to follow up on this. And it was just like, yo, you're my hero. He removed the shame from communications, where some people are trapped in the idea, right? So paralyzed by the idea of being an encumbrance in somebody else's life. And they go, I don't know how shame shows up. That's how it shows up in your business. That's how it shows up in your life. It shows up in the same way in your sex life. It shows up as, you know what? I'm paralyzed because I don't want to ask my partner to have more sex, or to have sex this way, or to have the conversation with my family and my friends. And so about anything. So it's showing up in grief, paralysis, anxiety on a perceived outcome, perceived fear.
Also, disassociation, like some people are just not there because it's
absolutely so much. Yeah. So what you do is you numb, and then you get into scrolling.
Oh God. Right? Oh, yeah.
Right. So I'm numbed out. I'm numbed out from the perceived fear. So I gets to scrolling, right? Gets to scrolling, gets to doing anything else except doing the thing that I told myself that I was going to do. So I'm going to give everybody who's watching an exercise that I give to my clients, but I'm going to give you an exercise, and this is gold. So listen up and listen good. Whenever it is that you feel like you are navigating through, you have a to-do list, you got a priority list. right? Priority list of the things that you want to accomplish. Generally speaking, you know, there's a book called The One Thing. You have like the primary thing that you want to accomplish during the course of a day. But I would say put the top thing that you want to accomplish during the course of a day, write it down. Make sure that the thing that you feel that shame about, or you feel uncertain about, whatever that thing is, write it down. You put a time limit on it, like literally a time that it is going to occur. So if it is that that post that you said that you wanted to make that is vulnerable, if it's that phone call that you said you wanted to make that's really scary, if it's that thing that you said you wanted to do, whatever it is, that one thing that you have, choose the number one thing on that list and then put it to a 3 count. Right. So then as you're looking up to that, like it's literally like New Year's Eve for the biggest things, the most important thing that you have to do during the course of a day, give it a 3 count. So if I say, look, I'm going to come down to if I'm going to put that post up at 1 o'clock, go to 12, when it's 12:59 and 57 seconds, then you are 3, 2, boom, give it a 3 count. Give it a 3 count and make it happen.
Wow.
And so when it's time bound, when there's a time parameter associated with it, when there's a true commitment associated with it, that's how you go all in, right? Because you are removing the trappings of your own feelings around the negative perceived outcome, and uninspiring perceived outcome. That if I do it, it's going to go bad. If I do it, it's going to be this. If I do, like all of that stuff, and the only thing that matters at that point is that you do the thing that you said you were going to do. And then if you don't do the thing that you said you were going to do, you just broke your own promise to yourself. And I tell you this, is that there's nothing like keeping your promise to yourself. And every failure in my life can be traced back to a single broken promise.
That's powerful.
Like, every single failure. And so when we get the opportunity to look at ourselves and say, I'm going to keep my word to myself, I'm going to do this thing to myself, then you are literally changing generational trauma by taking a physical action to move beyond the perceived fear. Now, I want to contextualize.
Cycle by not doing it.
Exactly. I want to contextualize this because there are some people, so I think it'd be good after I say this to provide a definition of trauma, but there are some people who are dealing with traumas relating to who they were, identities, and who they were not. And there are some people who are dealing with traumas relating to grave or violent acts in their lives, right? So people who have endured abuse, people who have endured sexual trauma, people have endured violent accidents or tragic accidents, people who have gone through really devastating situations. So I just want to contextualize this is that there's a spectrum across in terms of what trauma is. And so what I'm talking about is the perceived fear associated with taking an action because of the traumatic experience with your identities, as it relates to navigating through physical traumas and all those different things. We still get to do the 3 count, but what we do is we get to do the 3 count with powerful support of people that we trust to help us navigate through the emotions as they come up, because that's the other part about navigating through tragic situations, is that you need to have a powerful support system, people who can give you reflection, people who can support you as you're navigating through life's circumstances.
I really appreciate you contextualizing that. It is so important to get the variety and the levels that are part of the trauma conversation, right? And trauma, and that the types of support that are needed with different types of experiences is one thing that OkTrauma.com is dedicated to, is connecting the experts and organizations, that are working in the field every single day, that are out there, to a broader audience, so that people know what exists. Because there are, well, in fact, this Thursday on the 13th, we're going to be having a highlighted discussion with the Institute for the Healing of Memories, that's in Africa, and the needs for apartheid wounding. And knowing that bringing people together and the power of people witnessing each other's stories together, that healing is possible.
Yeah.
And um, and especially in connection with generational trauma and as it relates to race relations, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, and that's one. There's another organization I've been talking to, Tier 1, that's working with re-civilianizing soldiers when they come back from war and or from, you know, active duty, and the importance of that piece that's missing in the whole cycle of what happens when we bring soldiers home. You know, that's very specific. And so there's just so many specific communities that can hold people for the specific situations that they're going through. And we want to bring more access and awareness to that so that we are all in our communities and in the popular culture can support that happening as well, you know.
Oh.
And you're in the trenches with I'm assuming it's one-on-one with your clients.
See, I do one-on-one work. I do group masterminds. So, you know, the everything in to me in life is informed by, and I think the wheel that you were talking about is really powerful, because it's my belief that everything in life is best served when moving towards a desired outcome. Right, moving towards the future. So it's my belief that that we don't just live in the present. People say we live in the now, we say we live in the present. I don't believe that. Like, I don't just drink water now to drink water now. I'm not just talking to you now to talk to you now. Like, I can be in this moment, but I'm doing it because of the benefit associated with it. The benefit, the value associated with it. And so as I'm drinking water because it hydrates me so I can survive, right? The benefit, the value associated with it. So there's a benefit and value to human connection, period, right? There's a benefit and there's a value. So it's like, what's my desired outcome? I don't believe that we live in the present. So the present is not informed by the present. The present is informed by the future, right? And so the future outcome matters. What am I moving towards in the future? And then how am I living in that future now? I believe that we live in the future now. So for instance, I'll give you an example and how this relates to trauma is that, so my lady has a 9-year-old son. If he comes up to me and he says, hey, I want something to eat now, I just give him food now, right? But if I'm thinking about the future that I want to create with him, I want him to have healthy eating habits as an adult. I want him to have a healthy and strong immune system. I want him to be able to teach his kids how to have healthy eating habits and a healthy and strong immune system. So I will give him healthy food now, in the present, in service of the future that I'm looking to create. And I believe that the reason that people are spinning on the wheel is because they don't have a clear, inspired vision of tomorrow, like a powerful, inspired vision of tomorrow. It's what I call a pivot, but it's what most people call the future. Is that we get to live into a future that's inspiring. We get to take, we're not just navigating the trauma to just navigate, we're navigating the trauma because it's going to help us accomplish an objective. It's going to help us reach the dream of being the person that we wanted to be, of building the life that we wanted to create, of having the family that we wanted to build, of being in our best health, of achieving a financial outcome. And the idea is that we get to have the tangible outcome, meaning the physical thing that we can see, and the transformational outcome, meaning who we get to be and how we get to feel. And that's that future. That's what we're moving into every single day. And so the reason that we need to navigate through the trauma and navigate through the stuff is because this stuff is preventing you from getting to where you want to be. It's not just
be the continued expression of the trauma.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. The continued expression of the trauma.
This is a good moment to say the definition, I think, of trauma.
Please, please.
What we're working with right now, and it may continue to evolve, but the one I've found that I like, because it's very broad, is the response to a deeply distressing or disturbing event that overwhelms an individual's ability to cope causes feelings of helplessness, diminishes their sense of self, and their ability to feel the full range of emotions and experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Because that can go, I mean, people can function
Mm-hmm.
with lots, but to have their full range of emotion and experiences in the sense that they really can choose a new future and move towards it with velocity, with freedom, with ease.
Yeah.
And that can show in subtle ways and extreme ways.
Mm-hmm. What are some subtle ways that you imagine?
Oh, gosh. Well, in my own experience, to tell one on myself,
Sure.
I notice in the past, I would create a lot of chaos in my way of doing things. And I realized it was a way to disperse my power so that I could stay safe and not fully seen, really not in the world. So things wouldn't go all, because I'd be handling all the chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's when I saw that for what it was as a way to hide, I really started to address that. And so now more subtly, I'll notice where I'm just not quite organizing this thing over here, or not fully, you know what I mean? Like creating a structure in a way so it's like still colors of it,
Mm-hmm.
that are tuning as I go along, where it's like, this is it's an old pattern of not organizing something so that it can move easily and with ease, and where I kind of have to deal with a little bit of chaos that's just going to impact the result, a little bit.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's a great example. And, it goes back to this, most people think, because you were talking about addictions,
Uh-huh.
and there's different types of addictions, right? We think of drug addictions, but one of the things that I wasn't aware of was that I am, and that I used to be, an emotional eater.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I was addicted to food in a certain capacity, because I would eat when I felt good. I would eat when I felt bad. I would eat when I was nervous. Like, I associated food with navigating through emotional situations, especially when I gave up drinking alcohol 5 years ago. I just went to food, and I gained about 30 pounds, and it didn't really look like it, but you could look at me and tell, because I go get it in the face and I get it in my belly. Right. But one of the things that I realized is that in my situation, the subtle way that I wasn't aware of was that even before I went to food, is that I realized I was doing it through alcohol. And I was doing it in every way. I was avoiding navigating my full range of emotions by drinking. And it was very clearly navigating my full range of emotions because I only drank in social settings. When I was either with somebody or I was with, never really drank by myself, like, ever. But it was always when I was around other people. And so I was like, what's going on? And it wasn't that I was antisocial, because I'm an extroverted person. I mean, I'm a big person, so I'm usually the first person people see when we walk through the room. But I was like, what's the thing I'm hiding from in that? And what I was really hiding from was the shame of the fact that I got to a point in my life where I was broke financially, I was broken emotionally, I had 2 DUIs, my girlfriend was paying the bills, and I was navigating through this really difficult period of my life. And I didn't know how to get out of it. I wasn't asking for help. I didn't have a community. I didn't have like a support network. And I wasn't sure what my next move was going to be. And then I got to the point where I'm like, literally, like, I wake up and I hear somebody banging on the window of the passenger seat of my friend's car. And the person that was banging on the window was my friend. It was his car. Right? And he was like, he's banging on the window because he'd been trying to wake me up for 45 minutes. Because I fell asleep, knocked out in his car from drinking too much. And he was just, I was at a point where I was almost ready to shift my life around. I had just gotten a new job. I was about to relocate from LA to San Diego. I was about to take on this new job. I was making more money and everything like that. My life was transforming. And at that moment, as soon as everything started to look a little good, I went back to the same identity that had gotten me into that space. And I drank too much. Right for the breakthrough, I went backwards. And so that moment allowed me to make a choice. I woke up that night I stumbled to his guest room, but the next morning I woke up and I said to myself, went to the bathroom and I asked myself a question. Um, I said, if you could accomplish everything you ever wanted to accomplish in your life, and the only thing that you needed to give up was drinking alcohol, would you do it? And then I said, yeah, I would. I was like, well, do it. Make it happen.
Mm.
And so that was like my first 3 count. It's like, do it. So I said it to myself. Then I went downstairs talking to him. And then I'm talking to him and I said it out loud for the first time. I said, I'm done drinking alcohol. And I remember how my body was going navigating through that. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this. It's been my whole way of being. That's the way that I've been navigating through really challenging emotional conversations where I feel unworthy or incapable and all this other stuff. And so I told him that. And October 17th, 2015 was the very last day. Saturday, October 17th, 2015 was the very last day I had to drink alcohol. Yeah. Wow. And it's, it's a wavy experience, up and down, left and right, that kind of thing, emotional. But the bottom line is that, I was moving. I wasn't just I don't believe in giving things up. It's like, why would you give it up? It's serving a purpose, right? There's a value to it. You've already associated a value with it. You don't give things up. You trade up, right? So I wasn't giving up alcohol. I was trading up alcohol for my future. So I was leveling up. I was trading up. I was moving into a space where I knew that I needed to make these decisions and act in this way to move towards my desired outcome, my pivot, my powerful, inspiring vision of tomorrow, right? The future pulls us forward, and then we get to step in it every day.
That's a really powerful way of grabbing the reins of creating your future story and what's actually going to work for you. Little phone moment there. What's actually work for you to stay inspired about that, versus something that's going to drag you down about it. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's really, it's important to know that we can grab the reins of what we tell ourselves about our choices,
Yeah.
And I think that, and I know we need to begin to wrap this conversation up, but I think that bringing that back into our relationship to shame, to trauma, to our identities and where we've been, where we are, where we say we want to go is just such a key relationship that we can build to notice where something that is connected to an emotion like shame is stopping us and we're doing something without even noticing, and to really begin to slow down enough in those moments to notice and see if we can do the 3, 2, 1 or shift the conversation in our minds so that we can take a new action, and also to talk to people about it. I think thinking that we need to do it all on our own, and like you went downstairs and you spoke to your friend immediately, you included your community in that and didn't get hiding in the shadows at all. And I think that that's also part of what worked, is the willingness to be vulnerable with our community and taking the shame out of the game that way too, about what we're working through in a moment.
Yeah. I'll add one caveat to that story, so that you can realize that. So I came down the stairs, and I had a choice of walking out of the door and with the same way of being that got me to that place, or by confronting my demons and stepping into what I like to call the tunnel, right? So the beautiful thing about stepping into a tunnel, and my situation in my tunnel was that conversation with my friend, letting him know that I apologize for inconveniencing him in a major way that night, but also the new future that I wanted to create. So I had a choice. Like, I could have just walked out the door, hopped in the car, drove home. I was sober. Everything is good. But here's the thing. After I asked myself the question, I saw the potential of who I could be. And once you see who you can be, you can't run away from that. Once you see it, you can't run away from it. Like, you can't turn back. The only thing you can do is hide from it. You can just hide. So once you see who you could be, once you're like, oh, this is who I could be, I could literally do this. You can't run away from it. And so the idea is that to step into a tunnel is like, there's only one way to do it, is to confront the perceived demons, confront the perceived monster, step into the tunnel. There's only two ways out. There's either back to who you used to be, the one that got you half the results, the one that got you half all the life that you wanted to live, the one that produced all the inconsistency or incompleteness in your life, or you see the light at the end of the friggin' tunnel. And you realize that the only monster or demon that's in the tunnel with you is your perception. There's no monster in the closet. There's no monster under the bed. There's no monster in the tunnel. It's only your perception. And the only thing that you need to do is move towards the light at the end of the tunnel. And the beautiful thing about the light at the end of the tunnel is that, people have done it before. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You ain't the only person going through this. We get into these traps where we believe that we are the only person navigating our life experience. And when you're not the only person navigating this life experience, boo-boo, I'm sorry, I gotta let you know, you ain't the only one going through this. And that's the beautiful thing about it, is that your situation is not unique in nature. Like, it is your personal experience, but it is not unique in nature. People have gone through everything that you are going through. And so the only thing that you have to do in this moment is come to an awareness about what you are experiencing, be willing to share your story, and then open yourself up in a way that's vulnerable enough to allow the help to come in. Because if you allow the help to come in, you will have a friend or a guide, or as me, a coach, to be able to walk you through the tunnel.
Well, where can people find you so that they can have you to help them walk through the tunnel? What is I'll put your website in the comments, but if you want to say it here too, as we're wrapping up.
Absolutely. Well, so people can reach me on Instagram at Firestarter Live, or you can reach me on Facebook, Sanyika, the Firestarter Street. And please register for the panel that we're doing next Thursday, so that you can, really kind of tap into some really great expertise and tools. I'm going to be moderating, and really you're going to be listening to some of the greatest experts on this topic as they give you pointers and tools to help you navigate experiences that you are going through. So, but yeah, I'm very accessible. Hit me up on Facebook, hit me up on Instagram. I'm reachable. So get at me.
Yes, he's very reachable, and we'll make sure it's easy from here as well. And thank you. You can register for our panel discussion with the Institute for the Healing of Memories, which is at OkTrauma.com, and we're going to dive into intergenerational trauma as it relates to race relations, which is a really, really important topic right now. Our world has said it's time to move through this in a new way, very loudly. And this organization has been navigating this space with reconciliation and healing for a very long time. And from a place in South Africa where apartheid was very blatant, and we want to create that bridge to the North America experience today. And they are working on a really exciting conference for the springtime in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in honor of the centennial of the race riots that were there. So it's deep, and I'm so grateful that you're going to be moderating. Thank you.
Absolutely. Glad to be a part of it. And again, congratulations on this conversation and many conversations to come. Congratulations to you and Teddy and Andrew and everybody else that's contributed. And I'm looking forward to seeing and rocking with y'all on Thursday. Register for the panel in the links in the comments, and we will keep the conversation going from here.
All right. See you soon.
Awesome. All right.